you ever feel like quitting? David did. In Psalm 11, he was in a hard place, but he resisted the suggestion that he flee like a bird to your mountain, that he quit and get out of the troubles that he was in by going somewhere else. Now, in Psalm 55, our Psalm of the week, David wishes that himself. He says this, "Oh, that I had wings like a dove. I would fly away and be at rest." He wants to escape. He wants to get out of his circumstances. Have you ever felt that way? Have you ever felt like quitting? You ever just said to yourself, I'm so done with all of the pressure that I'm under and the things that people are saying about me, people doing things to me. I quit. I'm over this and I can't do it anymore. Well, how do we identify why we feel this way, first of all? And then how can we avoid giving in to the temptation to quit faithfully facing our challenges? Well, here's why David felt like quitting in Psalm 55. He feared violence and strife, verse 9. He faced iniquity and trouble, verse 10. And he faced oppression and fraud, verse 11. Those are really heavy controversies, troubles, pressures that he's facing. And here's what made matters even worse. David identifies his enemy in these words, my equal. He's my companion, my familiar friend, verse 13. David and this friend, we're told in verse 14, used to take sweet counsel together. They were spiritual companions. They used to walk together in God's house, talking about life and advising one another on important matters. This companion of David's, he tells us, spoke smooth words, yet war was in his heart. Verse 21, he deceived his friend. He said words that didn't reflect his hostile attitude toward David that he harbored in his heart. I mean, can you imagine being in that situation? Maybe you can. Maybe you face a somewhat similar situation. And so you get David's mental response. His mental response to this betrayal is understandable. He moaned his complaint restlessly, verse 2 says. His heart was in anguish. It's as if his heart was torn. He wasn't breathing right, probably as a rapid heartbeat. He feared death, verse 4 says. Horrors overwhelmed him, verse 5 says. But David could not quit. He had to persevere, and he knows it. So he's fighting this feeling to fly like a bird to his mountain, to get away from it all, to quit faithfully facing his challenges. He had to persevere, and so do you. And so what David does here is very simple. He prays for God to help him, to protect him from those who oppose him, even those who claim to be loyal friends. He prays that God would keep him from being moved. And he prayed to God that he would deal with his enemies. And this simple response of David, in the midst of a really hard place, not glossing over his challenges and his frustrations, his feelings of defeat, is very helpful for us. You need to know this as a child of God, trusting in the Lord, that God is sufficient to deal with your enemies. The enemies are very strong for you, but they're not very strong for God. And so you don't have to deal with your enemies. You don't have to have vengeful thoughts. You don't have to figure out a way to set them straight, to get back at them. God is fully sufficient to deal with them, and that's what David prays for. And he is able to keep you from falling. So God is able to deal with your enemies. He's able to deal with you. He's able to keep you from falling no matter how weak you are, no matter how terrible you feel, no matter how much you are inclined to quit. So here's David's counsel to us, the reader, as he is relating his own experiences. And this is such important counsel that the Apostle Peter picks up on it and quotes it in 1 Peter chapter 5, verse 7. David says to you, "Cast your cares, your burdens on the Lord, and he will sustain you." Cast your burden on the Lord, and he will sustain you. Verse 22. The Lord Jesus never quit. He never fled from the trouble that he was called to take on. He is barraged by problems in his earthly ministry as one wave follows the other, crashing on the seashore. He never fled. He never escaped. He never quit. He never was overcome by his challenges. And so he, as a conquering king, as one who has faced all of his troubles with perfect faithfulness, he is able to help us persevere through our hardest challenges. Call to the Lord in your moment of help. Cast your burden on the Lord, and he will sustain you. Let's hear Psalm 55, a psalm that reveals David's trouble, but also his resolve to trust in the Lord and his counsel for us as well. To the choir master with stringed instruments, a maskil of David. Give ear to my prayer, O God, and hide not yourself from my plea for mercy. Attend to me and answer me. I'm restless in my complaint, and I moan because of the noise of the enemy, because of the oppression of the wicked. For they drop trouble upon me, and in anger they bear a grudge against me. My heart is in anguish within me. The terrors of death have fallen upon me. Fear and trembling come upon me, and horror overwhelms me. And I say, oh, that I had wings like a dove. I would fly away and be at rest. Yes, I would wander far away. I would lodge in the wilderness, Selah. I would hurry to find a shelter from the raging wind and the tempest. Destroy, O Lord, divide their tongues, for I see violence and strife in the city. Day and night they go around it on its walls, and iniquity and trouble are within it. Ruin is in its midst. Oppression and fraud do not depart from its marketplace. For it is not an enemy who taunts me. Then I could bear it. It is not an adversary who deals insolently with me. Then I could hide from him. But it is you, a man, my equal, my companion, my familiar friend. We used to take sweet counsel together. Within God's house, we walked in the throng. Let death steal over them. Let them go down to Sheol alive, for evil is in their dwelling place and in their heart. But I call to God, and the Lord will save me. Evening and morning and at noon I utter my complaint and moan, and he hears my voice. He redeems my soul in safety from the battle that I wage. For many are arrayed against me. God will give ear and humble them. He who is enthroned from of old, Selah, because they do not change and do not fear God. My companion stretched out his hand against his friends. He violated his covenant. His speech was smooth as butter, yet war was in his heart. His words were softer than oil, yet they were drawn with swords. Cast your burden on the Lord, and he will sustain you. He will never permit the righteous to be moved. But you, O God, will cast them down into the pit of destruction. Men of blood and treachery will not live out half their days, but I will trust in you.